Coming up on the Long Island Business Report, we look at the real estate market from the high cost of housing to property taxes to corporate real estate.
We need to get this entitlement process shortcutted and be able to provide the housing that our youth needs here on the island so that we can attract other companies and expand the tax base and expand the growth and employment here.
What are the challenges facing both residential and commercial real estate on Long Island today?
We need government officials that understand that new development and that the real estate business is a key component of GDP growth, of attracting businesses and attracting people that want to live here.
It's all straight ahead on this edition of the Long Island Business Report.
Funding for this program has been made possible by Charlotte and David Eckert and the Roush Foundation. And now, from Molloy College at the Madison Theater, here's Jim Paymar with the Long Island Business Report.
Hello, and thanks for joining us. I'm Jim Paymar with the Long Island Business Report. There are many factors, of course, that threaten the real estate industry on Long Island, everything from high housing prices to property taxes to building new developments for corporate space. Joining me to discuss the challenges facing the residential and commercial markets are David Panetta, principal of Oxford & Simpson Realty, a major commercial real estate firm on the island, and Mark Hamer, principal of Timber Ridge Homes, a local residential development firm. David, Mark, thanks so much for being with us today.
Jim, thank you.
You know, we've gone through kind of a rough patch in terms of real estate all around the country. Long Island has been no exception. We've been hit hard. But Mark, tell me about housing prices. They seem to be on an upward trajectory. Is that the case?
I'd say that they've stabilized, and we're, for the first time in 4 years, starting to see a price increase that's meaningful or material in the communities that we're selling in.
What's driving that?
I think there are a confluence of issues. One, your foreclosure process seems to be behind us. It does not mean that we still aren't facing foreclosures, but certainly the bulk of them have been processed. You have a shortage of new home supply lots available because people in the last 4 or 5 years have not been going through a process of getting property zoned and approved for building lots. And just overall the economy is better. People have more confidence. The consumer feels better about their situation, about their job security, and when people have that type of confidence, they're willing to make major purchases.
And low interest rates. I mean, they're pretty much rock bottom.
Absolutely.
Right
now. You can't imagine that interest rates could go any lower.
Yeah. But you should also mention, I think it's important, that when you're talking about the residential real estate market, there's different segments. You know, there's below 300,000 and 300 to 800 and 800 and over. That's been, the numbers on that have changed dramatically, and they don't go lockstep with one another.
Right, and then the way I would say that is you have your new home buyer, right, your step-up home buyer, and then your more affluent home buyers. So, what you saw in the last 4 years is that there was always a market for the first home buyer, the lower end of the market.
Right.
What in the last couple of years, you're starting to see that stepped-up home buyer and the affluent home buyer back in the marketplace.
I see. And David, you deal in commercial real estate, and when I drive around the island, I see a lot of for lease signs and office space available and empty stores. How's your business been?
Well, again, similar to the residential market, there's different sectors of the commercial market. The development end of it has gotten hit the worst because it's been very difficult to finance that. Retail has also had a big correction. The office market and the industrial market have stayed relatively strong. And again, the reasons being is there's very high barriers to entry to build new product here on the island. And Long Island has a very low beta, meaning that it doesn't move lockstep with the rest of the country. When things are doing better than the rest of the country, Long Island improves, but not to, say, the same degree as Manhattan. And when things go down, though, we're also protected on the downside because we had sublease space, which right now has been gone, but vacancy rates are still right now about 10%. And in many markets during their good cycles, they'd love to have 10%.
Yeah, the one thing I would say though, and he's right, that clearly the demand side is improving. Occupancy levels are not as low as people would imagine in the commercial sector. The one area where the commercial sector is still hurt and it needs to really be a focus for Long Island is the operating expense side of that equation is really difficult. You've got a high tax structure, you have high operating costs, you have high utility costs, and that's obviously driving down the margins. All right, so if you're a commercial owner of property, it's not been an easy time frame over the last 3-4 years to manage your business.
Well, let me ask you, what can be done to make this a more viable economic situation? Is there anything that you see out there when you're dealing with building or leasing that government can do, that private industry can do? What are some of the solutions to our pricing problems?
You know, there's a lot of issues that tie into that. One of the issues is I think that there needs to be better education for the public so they understand the causes and effects of some of the decisions that they're trying to influence the politicians to make. As I mentioned, that we're not in a 1950s price structure. You know, we're in a 2013 price structure. So if your taxes are $20,000 and you're willing to go to $30,000, then we don't have as big of a problem here. But many people are not willing to do that. So we need to have new development. We need to attract more companies here. And that's how we sort of circle back into the residential side.
I would say, though, that to answer that question, land use is vitally important to the success and vibrancy of any market. And Long Island's land use process is not efficient and it's not transparent. We need to encourage and we need government officials that understand that new development and that the real estate business is a key component of GDP growth, of attracting businesses and attracting people that want to live here, to create that vibrant community. And we need to promote a more reliable, more efficient, and more transparent land use process in order to build the communities that we all want to live in.
$64 million question. How do you do that? I mean, things seem so steeped in their ways here, you know, that government doesn't move very quickly or nimbly here.
Well, that gets to David's point. I think that education is one of the first things we need to do.
And how do we educate people about this?
Well, I'll give you an example of something that's been happening more recently that I think has shown some success. Don Monti, who's the president of Renaissance Downtowns, has, I'm on the Huntington Planning Board, and I'm also vice chairman of Huntington Economic Development Corporation. So when we sent out an RFP to select the master developer.
An RFP, you mean request for proposal?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
He was one of those developers, and when he came in, he gave a great presentation. I was skeptical because he really hadn't completed any of these downtown projects. But in working with him over this past year, he's been able to make a connection with the residents in, let's say, in Huntington Station, where they feel like they're part of the process and they feel like they're being listened to, and he's coming back with them. He calls the process a crowdsourced placemaking. And he includes the residents, and they sort of understand, and he walks them through a little bit why something would work and something won't work.
Is this where he wants to build housing around the Huntington Station?
Well, he isn't looking to build anything yet.
Yeah.
He's trying to, we've hired him to be able to map out what should be done over there.
I see.
So where that's in contrast is, if you have a developer coming in to develop a specific property, whatever facts he brings to the table are going to seem self-serving, and they're not going to be trusted because he's trying to get a development. So I think that this process that Don Monti has started is something that needs to be embraced. I don't want to say on the government side, but there needs to be this in a community before you're putting properties on the market.
But the only thing I would add to that, okay, because I don't disagree that we've got to start, strategically looking at zoning, especially around transit hubs in villages. And Don Monte has been involved in several of those projects, and so I support it. But we've got to educate and start to learn what people in other cities are doing. There is a lot of exciting mixed-use projects going on that have been very successful, and Long Island needs to look beyond its own borders to understand what's really happening in land use, what's happening in the building trades, what's happening in livable communities. And we've been slow to embrace new product types. We've been slow to embrace changing the composition of our communities. Right. So that's a problem.
It's almost like we were the nation's first suburb. The troops started coming back after World War II, after 1945, and we developed Levittown, and then this place started to sprawl, and then no one wanted to live in Brooklyn and Queens, and they kept coming out to Long Island, and we've grown to be about 3 million people now. But much of what we built was built in the 50s. It's not very aesthetically pleasing. It's not built necessarily around transit hubs where people can get to and from work or to and from their home to a shopping center. How do we change that? How do we rectify that?
Well, right now, I think we're in a unique period, that we've been in for a long time, is the transportation is being addressed. There's the double track from Ronkonkoma over to Farmingdale has now been approved and funded. The East Side Access, which is going to be another big boon for Long Island. When you see that type of infrastructure being planned, approved, funded, then you start seeing the secondary pieces coming into play. So now you have an express and a double track going to Farmingdale. So the most natural thing to do now is to have a north-south transportation, whether it's bus, rail, or whatever, probably bus, to be able to come up and down Route 110, connect Huntington train station, Farmingdale train station, Melville Employment Center. The Melville Employment Center, if you're looking at the industrial and office properties, is 30 million square feet.
Wow.
That's a huge center. We're in the process, actually, Mark and I are on a newly formed committee for the Melville Employment Center that's looking at land use, looking at infrastructure, looking at traffic patterns to see what we can do with this to make it more connectable. Right. And we've all heard about the TODs, which is transit-oriented development. There's something new that we're looking at, which is EOD, which is employment-oriented development, where in Melville, you could potentially put residential, so they can walk to work. If you're at the train station, you're taking the train to work.
Right, and again, though I would say that we need to make the zoning codes more flexible. I mean, we were a community that originated in the post-World War II. Right. We, in that period of time, the single-family suburban lifestyle was what was vogue, and candidly, we created it with Levittown, right? But what we really need to be doing is understanding that the consumer taste and desires have changed. People don't necessarily want to live in a single-family home. We need to look at the variety of living choices: townhomes, condominiums, apartments for rent. We need to look at how different uses, commercial uses, interplay with each other. You can have residential around commercial product. You can have commercial centered around retail, around the villages. Okay, and so we have got to become a more flexible, more adaptive community, and we need to open the ideas up so that we can expand the redevelopment.
It's almost like we need to take a look at the next phase of suburbia.
And it's happening. Yeah. If you look across the country, it's been happening for the last 20 years. Sure. And if you look at the dynamic employment centers, the Metro DC area, Dallas, Houston, some of the West Coast communities, they've been much more exciting in the type of mixed-use developments that they've been doing. Well, the beautiful thing about Long Island, and I'm sorry, is we've got an infrastructure in place that most communities would dream of because of our transportation, because of our coastlines. What we now need to do is understand how to move those forward.
Jim, to put this in perspective, 15 years ago, there was a study that Long Island needed another 100,000 units of rental apartments. Okay. I had breakfast with Mike Maturo, who's president of RXR, yesterday.
Which is a real estate company.
Yes, another real estate company. And he said, when we were discussing topics similar to this, and what he said, within the past 10 years, there's been 900 new rental apartment units in the past 10 years. So we need 100,000. There's been 900 in the past 10 years.
And why is that?
Because it's the resistance of change. Mark is absolutely 100% right. We need a stratified choice of housing stock. That's why we're losing the youth. I mean, think about it. When you're getting married, you get an apartment, you basically have to go live in a basement apartment someplace or someone's garage that's converted.
Right.
And is that a fun place to live?
No,
it's
not at all.
Not at all. They want to live in a community where there's other people their own age, where there's social, aspects associated with it. And that's why they're going to Hoboken, they're going into Long Island City, and they're going to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And Manhattan.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
If
I mean,
you can afford it.
and that's a really key point in all of this. People say, well, it's affordability on Long Island. And David and I were talking about this earlier. It is, but it's not just affordability. It's desirability. Because people that are young choose to live in Manhattan every day.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Nothing can be more expensive than living in Manhattan.
Of course, yeah.
Right? And they're willing to live, two people in a 700 square foot space, okay, because Manhattan's exciting.
The clubs, the restaurants,
the
the bars,
social aspect of it, desirability of working or living right next to where you work, all of that.
Yeah.
Long Island can create some of that without losing its character of being a suburban community to New York City.
Right. And then when we talk about the commercial space, there seems to be like a cap on how big a building can be.
Right.
When Charles Wang wanted to build the Lighthouse project at the Coliseum, the town of Hempstead shot it down. There was going to be one large building there, but
Right.
What are we capped at, about 15 stories?
Well, that's really about the highest that we've had here on the island. But the problem where this residential, and we're talking about the apartments, ties into the commercial, like say office space, is in order to get companies to come here in Long Island, Real Estate 101, companies go where the employees are. That's the first thing that they do. So if they can't come here and hire young employees, they're not coming here. Or guess what? When they're expanding and they need to hire more employees, they're leaving. They're going off the island.
So what do we do?
What we need to do is we need to get this entitlement process shortcutted and be able to provide the housing that our youth needs here on the island, so that we can attract other companies and expand the tax base and expand the growth and employment here.
Okay, where's the political will to do that? That seems always to be an issue.
Look, I think that you're seeing seeds of it, right? I mean, if you look at the people talking about Patchogue and the success that Paul Pontieri has had in Patchogue, if you look at the conversations, and I think the Roush Foundation came out with a report a year ago talking about transit-oriented hubs, okay? Looking at the Hicksville train station and Hicksville downtown area for redevelopment. If you look at what's happening in some of the villages, Huntington has been open-minded to creating new development and redevelopment up in the village of Huntington. Look, you're not going to change the culture of suburban single-family home living. There was always a fear that Long Island would become Queens or Brooklyn. Unfortunately, I don't understand why, because Brooklyn's a desirable place, right?
It's a lot of fun.
Exactly. But it's you see seeds of it.
Right.
We need to continue to promote, though, these ideas. And back to the education component of all this that David referenced, it's without educating people that by adding a variety of housing stock, by changing the character of the development around train stations. It's not going to lower the quality of life. It's actually going to improve the quality of life. It's going to lower the cost of living.
Right.
And improve the quality of life. And that's what people really want. That's the choices that people are making by leaving Long Island. When you hear a 22-year-old has graduated from college and is not coming back to Long Island to live, mostly that is the two decisions. One is they can't afford it, and two is it's not offering them what they want.
It's not fun.
And can we build high-rise developments around our transit hubs, you know, where then you'd get ancillary businesses, you'd get bars and restaurants opening up, but they've got to have a critical mass of people
That would absolutely happen. You know,
Yeah.
I've had many conversations, you know, with people in these areas that need redevelopment, need economic development, and they're saying, well, you know, we'd like to have banks come in here and businesses and stuff, and I tell them, wait, time out.
Yeah.
Right now, there's a balance between how much the community is spending and what they're spending it on, and what retailers are here. So if you don't change that balance, you're not going to change what's going on here in this town. So if you can come in and going high rise, you know, is a great idea because they're not making any more land.
Right.
So the parcels that are available, we need to maximize that. And then we can offset that with all, you know, we're buying open space. You know, Nassau, Suffolk County, they're buying open space continuously.
Right.
So we need that, and we need those cores where I think, you know, where Mark was leading into is we need these sort of like mini cities where you're living there, you're working there, you're being entertained there, and that's a way to get more cars off the road as well.
Right. And what about redeveloping areas that are pretty decrepit right about now? We have some areas of Long Island that you know, if you could buy folks out, relocate them in a very feasible way so that their lifestyle wasn't destroyed, and redevelop wide swaths of the island. Is that possible?
Yes, and developers would rather redevelop some of these spaces. If as a residential builder, we would much prefer to focus a townhouse community or a condo community around a Hicksville train station or a Port Washington train station, where the infrastructure and the transportation system is in place. As long as we could have some reliability and predictability to the zoning process. All right, so the only thing that forces developers to move to raw land or further away from New York City or away from these hubs is the lack of confidence that we can move forward.
I see.
So, you know, we propose ideas, and with success, you know, it begets success. So as new projects come online and the community understands that it's not eroding the fabric of the community, it's actually enhancing it,
Right.
you'll see more and more developments that take hold.
We had a situation right here in Rockville Center where Avalon Bay wanted to come in and build condominiums, and there was a big fight against it. You know, people said, you know, it's not a good thing for the community, but the buildings are beautiful. They were on land that was used to be an old drug manufacturer, and it's very nice.
Yes.
But this resistance still goes on.
Right, and look, Avalon Bay has been a poster child over the last 4 or 5 years, or maybe 10 years of promoting a new development or an adaptive reuse of property, only to be met with resistance, and then it's built, and
Everyone
it's turned out
loves
to be
it.
very successful,
Yeah.
and but that's a lesson. We need to do a better job in the development community of educating people about the after. A lot of times we don't go back 5 years later and profile and make people, force people to rethink that, oh wow, we were against this, and look what's happened to the neighborhood. Look how it's improved. Another perfect example of that was the drive-in, the old drive-in theater around the Westbury you know, community. For 10 years, 15 years, that was fought. And then ultimately a BJ's opened, a cinema complex opened up. And if you look at that area today, You now have a BMW dealership that's one of the highest grossing BMW dealerships. You've had a new hotel that's been gone in there that's added a spa. You've had people go in and renovate an apartment complex, making it a much nicer apartment complex. You had a hotel that was added. So the whole neighborhood in that area of Jericho and Westbury has improved. Okay, all of that happened when they took a use that was antiquated, that was obviously not succeeding. Okay, and that is a drive-in movie theater, right? And they turned it into something that people wanted.
Well, listen, we're already out of time. This 27 minutes goes by very fast. David Panetta, thank you so much for being with us. Mark Hamer, you as well. Very informative. We'll do it again. Lots to talk about. And that wraps up our conversation on Long Island real estate. For more on the Long Island Business Report, log on to our website. You can also find us on Facebook and join the conversation on Twitter. I'm Jim Paymar. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Long Island Business Report, and we'll see you next time.
Funding for this program was made possible by Charlotte and David Eckert and the Roush Foundation.